This was back nearly 12 years ago, in the late summer, about August of 2008, when I was camping up on Mount Hood in Oregon. Living in the state of Oregon, and being a Pacific Northwest buff, you are pretty much forced, based on family and friend circles, to be in love with the outdoors. At least that's how I was, my family and friends were. So camping was second nature to me and everybody I knew. And not only camping, but solo camping. I loved it. If I had a spare weekend to myself, I was out camping. If I needed a stress relief, I was out camping. You get the picture. So, this weekend, which especially in the summertime, I love solo camping, I was up on an unknown spot in Mount Hood. I don't say unknown spot because it wasn't discovered, but I say unknown spot because I hiked in myself, and I don't exactly recall where I was camped out at. Just somewhere along the mountain. I was camped out there for 3 days and 3 nights, and it wasn't until the second day where things became weird. During the evening time, I started hearing crazy amounts of noise, loud banging that sounded like somebody was dropping a washing machine from 50 feet up in the air onto heavy rocks. I'm talking loud metal banging. It was the strangest thing. There's nothing metal around me. There's no creeks, it's just timber and rocks, at least in the area I was, so I wasn't too sure where the noise was coming from. The other thing is the noise didn't appear to be coming from a specific direction, like you would expect noise to. It appeared to be coming from all around me, omnipresent, above me and around me. It was creepy, but after a while it ceased. But then I heard other weird noises. Sounds like running, trampling, banging, loud clashing, metal pipes banging together, heavy machinery, humming, all the above, in random orders for random intervals of time, all throughout the night and evening, ranging from volume and everything else. It was strange, and as soon as it suddenly started the second day in the evening, it also stopped on the third day in the morning. The rest of that day and the rest of the third night, I experienced nothing but calmness, as I'd expect to when I go camping. The noises didn't deter me, although they were disturbing and very weird. I have no way to summarize what it was that I was hearing. Let me emphasize to you that I had hiked quite a bit of ways out by myself. If I had to guess and estimate, maybe 7 miles out in the middle of nowhere on the mountain. There was not a soul around, and if there was, it would be impossible for them to be making all this heavy machinery noise, banging, clanging, dropping stuff. It sounded like I was on a construction site not far away, but that's impossible where I was on the mountain. I also, in the spot where my camp was, I had pretty clear view of the valley below me. There was no signs of anything, no disturbances that I could visually see, although sonically, I was hearing a war going on. Since this has happened, I've gone up camping on all sorts of mountains, including Mount Hood since, Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, and others in the area of the Pacific Northwest since then, and I've never had an experience quite like this one. So this one goes down as my own personal weird deep woods story, since I know you have a nice collection on your YouTube channel. Maybe this one can be added to the batch. I hope you like it. Enjoy. Back in 1988 or 89, I was just a stupid kid, a teenager, and I hung around other stupid kids too, because we all had a habit of making not the greatest decisions that would later put me in jail and even end up causing me to serve some prison time. But that's not what I'm writing to you about, nor is my story about. I'm going to tell you about the time that, by the way, this was in the state of Florida, that me and my friends found a severed hand while we were out trying to sneak a joint. It was about 1989 or 1988, like I just told you. It was hot, it was in the summer, and a close friend of mine, who was a year younger than me, stole a joint from his father's collection, hoping he wouldn't notice. We snuck out, thinking we were funny and conniving, and went off into the woods near our houses. These woods weren't like the timber of the north. This was the thick, humid Everglades. I don't want to say we hiked it anywhere, because I feel like that's an overstatement, but we did go in maybe 50 to 100 feet to a very small clearing of probably 10 feet by 15 feet. This is where my friend pulls out the joint, and we go to light it, when he stops and looks to the ground next to him and says my name. I look, and on the ground is a freshly severed human hand. We both scream. He throws the joint down, and we run. Stupid mistake, I know. We run out, and we're panicking, not sure what to do. Should we contact his parents? Should we call the police? But I think we were so scared of getting caught with marijuana at the time that we decided not to do anything about it and just go on with our lives. Well, you might ask, how do I know it was a severed hand and not a fake prop or possibly a piece of plastic? Well, having been to prison and seen some grisly scenes myself, I can assure you wholeheartedly this was a freshly severed hand. Not cut off with an axe and thrown on the ground and that we had just walked on it, but it had been there for a few days, starting to change color, and, judging by the way human flesh looks, especially once dead and severed, it looked exactly like that. There was no mistaking it. The real question is who lost a hand, and why was it cut off? Why, out of all places, was it thrown in this spot? This isn't just a case of somebody driving by and throwing a severed hand out the window. Where you had to go to in that little clearing required you to actually walk a little bit ways into this small Everglade, or part of the Everglade. I didn't notice any other things like blood or any weapons or anything like that. We both just glanced down and saw the hand there. So somebody placed it there. I almost wonder if somebody murdered somebody and was trying to get rid of evidence, but I don't know, and my friend will never know. And while this is a story of my youthful past, it is a great story to bring up on the topic of weird things found in the woods, or in my case, the Everglades. P.S. After this happened, my friend and I never went back to that spot, so I have no idea what became of the hand, and we never did call the police, as I stated, so it was probably either eaten by a predator, or just decayed and rotted there. Maybe the bones are still there of the hand, I don't know, but to my knowledge, I never saw anything on the news about it, never saw any other police report, and from what I saw, there's never really anybody else that went back there to that area of the Everglades, at least to my knowledge. Back in 2005, I was going on a long 5-day camping trip with my family, who I had just recently reunited with after being away from college for nearly 4 years and not really having the chance to see them much. I can't exactly recall the camping place we went to, or the campground, but I know that it was pretty loaded with a lot of people, and it wasn't until that night we began hearing screams as we were sitting around the fire, playing acoustic guitar, roasting marshmallows, and eating s'mores, telling stories of fun family adventures, when from far away we heard an ear-piercing scream. It made all of us stop and look over, with my mom looking back at us, saying, "Did you guys hear that, or was that just me?" My dad certainly noticed too, as it caused him to stop playing. He looked around at all of us and saying, "What do you think that was, you guys?" That's when we heard it a second time, except it sounded much closer this time, and much, much deeper. Because of the size of this campground and how full it was, I mean, it wasn't on a weekday. This was on a weekend, and during the summertime, so it was pretty booming. Several other people in other campsites around us also looked in the direction of the scream once they had heard it too. I knew we were not the only ones to feel like we were crazy. Once it happened a second time, only moments later, several people, including me and my family, had a very concerned look on their face, like something was going on, but we didn't know. Several of us were standing up now, looking over in the wooded area where we heard the scream from. To paint you a picture, this sounded like a gorilla on steroids, except much, much lower. And it also kind of had a higher pitched quality to its voice. I can tell you one thing, I've never heard anything like it in my life. It cut off after that second time, and we went back to enjoying s'mores and hanging around the fire. Well, about 10-11 p.m., somewhere in there, camp life started to die all around us. Everybody, one by one, shuffled off to their sleeping bag and went into their tents. My dad still stayed up, and about 11 or so is when he cut it off himself, went to bed. I was probably the last one by the fire, still thinking around. Now, it was probably getting closer to around 11:20, maybe 11:15, and I hear this horrible scream yet again, but not from the same area as the first two times. This was on the area on the other side, but it was that same unmistakable scream. And this one sounded the most loud, even though it was clearly the most far away. It sounded like whatever animal it came from had the most lung power, or was trying to produce the loudest scream. It was enough to send me in my tent and go to sleep for the night and call it quits. It definitely spooked me and all my family, that's for sure.